Live videos at 11:30 every Thursday. I'm an associate marketing manager here, and Peter is out today, so I'm taking over his role of being interviewer. And today we have our special guest, Audrey. If you've been watching the last couple of weeks, you may recognize her. She was our amazing church supplies intern for the summer, and that is why she was the perfect person to write our blog post for this week, which was entitled Staying Connected to Your Church's College Students. So we have our assistant here. She's going to put a link in the bio or in the comments for you. You can also leave any questions you have in there throughout in the comments section, and we'll get to those, or we will answer them afterwards on Facebook. But with Audrey here today, we wanted her to write about college students and connecting with them. So thank you for writing the blog and joining me today. But just tell me a little bit about yourself and why you were the expert in writing.
Right, yeah, so I'm Audrey, as Rachel said, and I am the church systems intern at CPH this summer. I go to school at Concordia, Chicago, and I'm actually a music administration major with a marketing minor. And I thought this was an important topic to talk about because, I mean, it's really relevant to me as I'm still a college student, and I have a lot of friends who I think have struggled in the past with staying connected with their churches. So I thought this was a really relevant topic to talk about today.
So because it is relevant, but why is it also important for churches to keep that connection with their college students? You know, they're going away for 9 months out of the year, so why is that important to keep that connection going?
Right. So I think it's really important to keep connections with your college students while they're away, because college is a time, it's probably the first time when kids are maybe going to church without their parents or not having their parents to say, come on kids, wake up, let's go to church. So this is like a time where I think a lot of kids actually stop going to church. So this is a really important stage for churches to stay involved so kids don't drift away from the church.
Yeah, that's very true. So in your blog post, you gave several options or tips, ideas for churches to stay connected. And the first one you talked about is we use a program here called LIVESTREAM for these live videos we do, but you also maybe talked about uploading or recording the sermon and putting it online for the college students as they're away. Could you tell me why that's important or how a church would do that?
Yeah, so LIVESTREAM I think is a really good option for churches to stay connected with college students because it gives students a way to still see what's happening at their home church and still be involved and hear what other members of the church are doing and what's going on at church. Even though they have to do it remotely. And so you can just upload them online on your website, and then kids can just go on and watch them at their convenience whenever they have time in their schedule. And that can sometimes be weird when you're in college. Your schedule can be really odd. So having the option to watch a video when it's available for you, watch a sermon, is really helpful.
Do you think that if they're watching the sermon recorded, they still get that connection they might have if they're in the physical church?
You have a different kind of connection, I would say, because you're not getting you can't do communion. You're not actually able to be there and speak to people, but you still it connects you with your community from back home. So it's reminding you of home if maybe you're a little homesick or whatnot.
That actually kind of reminds me this summer my church is doing a top 10 hymn sermon series, and it's actually been I wonder what hymn number 2 is. It's coming up this weekend. And so being able to still, if I was in college, to connect with that and be able to stay up with that, because that is a big part of the church. We're going to keep using that on and on. So being able to stay connected in what my church is doing, that's really nice.
Right.
But have you actually seen any college students watching recorded sermons?
Yeah, I have. So I know my roommate from sophomore year she would watch her videos from her church a lot. Not every Sunday, but pretty frequently. And she would still be going to church on campus, but she would additionally be watching these videos.
Like you said, stay connected to your home. Yeah. So your next tip you gave, I thought it was kind of an obvious one because you're talking about college students and social media. But, how would a church go about connecting to a college student over social media?
So there's a lot of tools you can use for through social media to connect with your college kids. One of the big ones that pops up into my head is doing a Facebook page. And I think one of the really nice things about having a Facebook page is that it allows students to be as involved as they want to be. So you don't have to be constantly reaching out to individual students, and because that's something, if you reach out too much, students might get annoyed and kind of not want to hear from you all the time. But if it's just a page online, they can look whenever they want, or just look at what the church is going on, or do something maybe more in depth.
It's easier to maintain on the church end too.
Yes, and so then they can be as engaged as they want to be. And
what about any like messaging? Like, do you want to always use Facebook Messenger, or do you think there's other options besides Facebook?
yeah, there are a lot of other social media things you can also use. One of the ones that I know I've used in the past have been like GroupMe, and so that's basically like an app you can get that everyone can connect in, like just like a messaging app. Also, they have like WhatsApp, which has a similar function, so that's something people could also use to stay connected.
We actually did a video and a blog post about GroupMe a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago, so if you are interested in more of that, you can go back and find that. But do you think social media, so you might use it to connect with kids who are going out of town, so what about those who go to college in town, or maybe some kind of an online version of college, so they're still going to church at home regularly? Do you think social media would still work in keeping that strong connection?
Yeah, I definitely do, because it's a way to add to the experience people are already having, and a way to remind people like, hey, like we have this event coming up, and then it's, useful in a different way too, because then people can still actually attend the event if they're close by, but it's a way to remind them that maybe that's coming up, and they can keep in touch like through their friends. They're like friends from church who maybe did go far away. They can still stay in touch with them that way too.
I could see something like that also helping to grow from, those kind of awkward college years in church, kind of what you said, you're kind of going without your parents at times, but then that can also keep you growing in the church throughout like your, any adult ministries your church might have, or 20s and 30s college ministries, stuff like that, kind of keep you going too in your faith at your home church. So that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. The biggest, and we'll touch on this a little later too, but the next tip that Audrey shared in her blog post was a church can also help their congregants, their members, find a church in their home, in their college town they're going to. So why should a church actually help them? That's could be time consuming on their end. They might not have time, or how do you think that would work?
I think that this is one of the most important ones you can help your college students with, especially if they're going to like a college that maybe isn't Christian, because like I know I'm at Concordia Chicago and we have a church on campus, but for people who are going somewhere that doesn't have a church, it can be kind of intimidating. Again, this might be their first time going to church without their parents, so it's intimidating to like find a church on their own, or maybe like they haven't like met other friends who are going to church yet, and they haven't found that group of kids yet who are going to church. So sometimes just having a game plan of a church you want to go to is enough to get a student to go. And so helping your students like look for churches is a key part of this. So there are a lot of ways you can do that. Like if the student is going somewhere where you might have connections, you can reach out to your connections and see and like let them know of people in that area. Or one of the things I linked to in my blog post is the LCMS has like a church finder app, and you can search by location of where you are or where the student will be going, and that will give you like churches in the area. And there are also like ones for other denominations as well, but the LCMS one is what's linked in the blog post.
And we'll also put that in the comment section too if you're interested in finding that quicker. It's also in her blog post. And also I know I didn't go to a Christian college, but I know we had a very strong campus ministry. So that was a way to connect as well. So I think that it's a big option on campuses. And like you said, there's so many connections through church that you probably didn't even know ever existed. So you can probably easily help someone find a church there.
For sure.
So then if a church offers this link to a student to help find a church, do you think there's anything else a church can do? Maybe follow up, or maybe get them together in a room and talk about the church that maybe they could go to? Or do you see the church being more involved besides just helping them find the church through the link?
Yeah, I definitely think they can be. And this is something that you can do, especially at the beginning. Like, this is an easy, like, maybe before they even leave, to help them find something. And it's something you can sit down and talk about. And maybe, like, help them look through the churches and help them find things that they like or maybe don't like, so they can kind of
Since
find
it's
a
their
church
first time on their own, they might not know.
And then also, I think that you can, I just completely lost my train of thought.
I just kind of pictured maybe like the youth group meeting together, or a pastor one-on-one meeting, and let's look up a few churches, this is what you might like because it's similar to here, or things like that, not just like sending a link on their way, like being more involved.
Yeah, having that conversation ahead of time, I think is very important.
Definitely.
And then, like you mentioned earlier, following up is important. just to like maybe they were nervous that first weekend back and they didn't make it to church. So maybe it's like the follow-up conversation, be like, oh, did you make it? Or like if they went and didn't like it, maybe that's another step to say like, let's look for another one.
Let's find another one. Yeah.
And keep continue to help them find one until they find something that fits, I would say.
Definitely. So your next tip, I know my mom used this in college a lot, and I know parents use it, but also churches can really use this. So we just talked about using social media and technology to really connect with your college students, but you mentioned using snail mail. So tell me more about like why snail mail?
So I really like getting packages at school, and I think it's a really great way to keep in touch with students in a more personal way. It's really easy to connect over social media or like do things online, but like taking the time to like maybe write a letter means a lot to students because it's that extra personal connection, and that's what really reminds people of church. It's the family and the community at church. I know at my church there is a lady who volunteers and she writes letters to all of the college students. And so we'll get like cards for Christmas and cards at Easter, and it's always really a fun surprise to go to your mailbox and find like a letter from someone at church. And that's been really nice for me. And this is something like, it sounds kind of weird to say like use like mail to reach out to kids because everyone is kind of
especially in this digital
age.
It's
technology, that's the big thing. But so the key part about this is making sure that you're sending the right kinds of things over the mail. Like we're not going to be interested in like your newsletter. That's not the kind of thing we want through the mail. That's something we'll find online, but it's those more personal interactions that we're looking for.
And you're hitting it right on the head. It's the personal aspect of it, It's Audrey's birthday, let's send her a card.
Right.
Or, it's finals time, let's get those college students, some snacks or something. Those are always really good.
Right. And then if you do end up sending snacks or something, make sure you let the kids maybe know ahead of time. Not everyone is super good about checking their campus mail. You don't want to like get your food and then it's stale. I've done that once or twice before, but so let them know ahead of time if you might be sending them something.
That's a very good tip. Not everyone's waiting for their mail.
Right.
Yes. So those are Audrey's tips for how you can stay connected with your church, your college students from your church. But we're gonna wrap it up here. But I want to know, out of all these tips that you gave, what would be the easiest and like quickest for a church to implement to use maybe starting this August as kids are going back to school?
I think hands down the easiest one, if you already have social media set up for your church, is to start reaching out through that. That is something that doesn't need to take a lot of time. Sometimes I think people get nervous about using their social media, but it doesn't have to be a really big like time-consuming process. It can be as simple as sending out a message and asking people how they're doing. So that's a really simple one. I also think helping students find churches, that can be like a conversation or two before they leave. So that shouldn't be a really hard process.
So then out of all these ones that you talked about, which is most meaningful, or which do you appreciate the most when you get from your church?
I definitely appreciate getting letters the most. It just is really personal. And so then it's nice to know that people are thinking about you even when you're away.
It's a nice family feel from your community church.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you all enjoyed this and learned some ideas for how you can stay connected with your church's college students as they go away here shortly. So good luck to you as you're leaving us this week as well, going back to school, finishing up strong, hopefully. Trying to figure out what to do with your life.
Right.
It's tough. So hopefully these help you stay connected, and we'll hear from you next week at 11:30 Thursday. Thanks.